Hi, guys.
Hello.
Welcome to Light the Heart podcast. Welcome to Light the Heart podcast. I'm Becca,
I'm Abby.
and we're very grateful to be with you guys today here at Chaotic Good. This is only our second podcast, so we're going to just talk a little bit about what our podcast is and what it's for. And since I talked about it last time, I think it's your turn to talk
Okay,
about
let's do it. So, Becca and I had been chatting just about like creative ways to kind of send these ripples of both wisdom and, healing, and also just like connection, right? Like within our community, so that people know that there are safe places, eclectic, holistic places that are different than what we find in our community. And, that's a really big main reason why Becca created Chaotic Good, is to have this oasis, and fill gaps in our community. And so we see this podcast as another gap filler because, like it's another way for us to voice, settling into that heart space, like we talked about last episode, really just opening up our hearts and being open and curious to new ways of growing together, new ways of connecting with one another, getting more back to like a village-like mentality, right? Because like Becca and I see often in this modern day society, we see these islands, in suburbia, or even in the city. Like people live like downtown, they live right next to each other, but it's not so much anymore. Are we going to our neighbor for a cup of sugar or this or that? Because the world, in reality is kind of dangerous and kind of scary sometimes. However, if we're always looking at that world like it's scary and dangerous, then we're in this defensive mode and we're kind of like, not wanting to connect. And so Becca and I really wanted to have an outlet to show what it is that we're doing here, so that people know that there are safe places and there's places where you can go to just be yourself and be loved, without judgment and unconditionally, and really be empowered to just follow, your uniqueness of what it is you came here to do. So Light the Heart is really just, as we speak, we're allowing, that to come through a channel. We're not just speaking from our ego here. We're trying to speak from the greater good, from the all. So this is really something that's meant to be for the community. And really we want to open it up to community members to come in and, be able to connect in just a multitude of ways, and be able to highlight other places, other services like Chaotic Good that are offering these pockets, these oases of this village, this connection, and this one mentality.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well said. Very well said. And I think adding to that, Abby and I have conversations all the time with each other and with people that are already here, like utilizing the environment and finding a space for themselves and each other. And we wanted to extend that out further, and so that we're not an island.
Yeah.
So we just decided to have some of our conversations live online and see what happens. And we would love input and feedback as to what kind of topics you would like to have conversations about. And, if anybody wants to come chat with us, we would love to have you join our chat. We know some really amazing people, and I think we're going to have a bunch of people come in and chat with us as we get rolling and moving forward here. So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So basically, like what Becca was saying, it can be what you guys want. Like if you have some ideas of like, I really want, some more information and education on this topic, or I really want, to know more about the services that are in the community that I'm not aware of at this time. We can, Becca and I network and find, professionals in that field, and highlight what they're doing and bring them in for that further education. So we are open to any feedback or wants or desires of what you're interested in.
Yeah.
And so today we were kind of thinking we would just chat about shadow work. Segueing off of our last episode, it kind of got there. Becca and I don't like sit and be like, what are we going to talk about, and like put a skit together or anything like that. We're just having these organic conversations, and it felt like it just organically went there.
Mm-hmm.
And we're in the month of December, and we're going into this hibernation as a collective, and we're going inward, and there are going to be more moments where we are alone with reflection, and more in the house and things like that. And so it's a really potent time to be able to work on that hibernation, so to speak, in that wound space, so that we can come out of winter really feeling more sure of ourselves, more confident in our actions and our steps.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think maybe not everybody knows what shadow work is. So the shadow really, I believe, is, an indigenous concept, but it was really developed by Carl Jung and his work. And he talks about the collective unconscious, where we collectively have all of this material kind of floating around with all of this spiritual activity, and things bubble up into our subconscious. And part of our subconscious is the shadow. It's this part of ourself that, holds things that we don't like. So this could be things we don't like specifically. If you don't like something about somebody else, it's probably an area of your shadow that needs to be looked at or worked on.
When I found that out, by the way, like just to have a little segue, when I found that out, I was like repulsed with myself. I was like, oh my God, it makes so much sense, right? With polarity and duality and the law of correspondence, like what's within is also without. We can't recognize something unless it's within us.
Yeah. Well, because everything in life is a reflection. Everything is a reflection. And this isn't to say that, like, if somebody's going around being a serial killer or raping people, like, you don't like them because that's part of you. This is more like, if you don't like certain traits in people, it's probably something you have a piece of in yourself that should be looked at and be allowed to come up, so that you can take an equal opposite energy and make it okay for it to be a part of yourself and have an awareness around it.
That's right.
So that we're having more conscious action in our everyday lives. And this improves not only how we feel about ourselves, but it improves our relationships.
Yeah.
So a big part of shadow work is sitting and with ourselves and like thinking about, what do I not like about myself, or what do I not like about this person that irritates me every single time I see them. So sometimes it can be helpful to start with things that you already know you don't like about yourself, because a lot of times we want to change those things.
Yeah, we want to shift our perspective.
Yeah, but we don't know how, right? And so what we do instead is we reject it. We say, oh, no, I'm not even going to look at it. I don't like that. It's too hard. I don't know what to do. I'm just going to pretend it's not there. That is what is meant by a rejected part.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you brought up a really important part there. And just to simplify this shadow work process and this, the way that you go through this in your journey, recognition and, awareness, acceptance, that is really, really tough, but it's also really simple sometimes. And it's the first step to healing. And so a lot of times, like I get this for myself as a lived experience, and a lot of my patients were like, oh, I just don't feel like I'm doing this right. Or it just feels so messy, or it just feels so, ugh. And oftentimes we just can't see for ourselves that we're doing a lot of really good work. We're doing a lot of really hard work, even just in recognition and acceptance and seeing.
Oh, absolutely. Awareness is half of it. Yeah. Awareness is half of the work. Mm-hmm. You know, if we're walking around unaware of things, I mean, you can't work on anything or acknowledge anything if you don't have an awareness around it. And I would say most of, you know, the work I do with clients that feel like they're in a good place, but they have like some holdout areas, is bringing awareness to things.
Yeah.
And it's because we already know the stuff. Mm-hmm. We already know it. It's already in us. But to hear it out loud and be like, oh, right, yes. Yeah. Then the awareness is there. It opens up the door to be able to get to acceptance, to look at it, to work on it.
And not even just to like talk about it too, like that is definitely something that will bring you clarity. But like a lot of times too, what I find for myself is art. Like,
oh, definitely.
You know, it can access that higher self or that collective unconscious, as you were talking about with Carl Jung's theories. We can tap into that, and then all of a sudden we become aware. And it's far less re-traumatizing if we can go about that in a way that we sit in that right brain.
Well, and I'm glad you brought up tapping into art, because art, especially if you have stuff in your body that you're hanging into, is a really good segue into somatic work, because somatic work can be super triggering. Yeah. But if we do art, the body can express itself through art where it can't express itself in other ways. So, for instance, if you have a pain that you can't really put into words, or you're really struggling with, you asking yourself, just getting out like pencils or paint or anything like that and painting the pain, it circumvents the logical filter.
Beautiful.
It circumvents the logical filter, because there's a disconnect between the body and the mind. Yeah. And so doing art circumvents that, and then we can actually access pain in a better way. So the first step to healing things in the body is art.
Yeah, and I feel like you brought up a really good segue there too, within there, to talk about the ego. You know, that's like a huge part. Like when you're talking about the shadow, when Becca discussed that earlier, that's the ego, right, as well. And we have to kind of like go through there to get to the deeper parts of the shadow. And what she says when she says circumvent that logical piece, we are bypassing that ego that wants to tell us all these illusions. We love her or him or them. We love them because they're going to protect us. It's just that oftentimes it's a perceived threat that the ego comes up with, and it's not actually reality. And so to be able to use art in that way, and to be able to just kind of bypass, we're like sneaking past the ego, like tiptoe. Yeah, and then we get to play, right? Yeah. And just be like,
and we love play.
We do, and it's such a flowy experience too, right? I love that there's these shadow workbooks out there. I love that for different people that have like more left brain or logical thinking, or really enjoy putting, pen to paper, that's there for them. For me, I'm a little bit different, and I bought the books. They're not filled out.
Yeah, I don't do that.
They just sit there.
Yeah,
me too. But one of the things that Becca taught me that I use with my patients, I use with myself, ongoing is process-oriented collage work. It is fabulous. Can you explain that a little bit to everybody? Because it's been such a really cool tool.
Yeah,
to help me work through shadow.
Yeah, absolutely. So I use this all the time in my work, because it does exactly what you said. We can process things so much better if we have imagery, words, if we're using our hands, we're using our body with our mind then, so then we're working with it. And I think we should come back to like defining the ego after we talk about process-oriented collage work, because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding around that. But
I agree.
So with process-oriented collage work, you pick something that you want to work on, okay? This is simple. You could do it at home.
Mhm.
And if you do it with other people, it's exponentially more powerful. So like when we do it in session, I do it with the client.
Yeah.
Like I'm doing my own collage,
Mhm.
the same topic,
Yeah.
right? So you pick a topic area that you want to work on, and then you find just kind of what images pop out to you as being part of this for you. What words, what shapes, all of these things. And so you make your collage based on a specific question. And what this does is it gives us the body a direct link to the subconscious. And it gives the body a direct link for not only the protective egoic mind, but for the shadow to express itself through the body by doing art. And I, again, with like what you were talking about with all these workbooks and stuff, they're fabulous. There's one that I specifically use with clients that want to do that type of work.
Me too.
But I don't use that tool for myself. And I do shadow work all the time and have been for like way too long. But
daily occurrence.
It's all the time. All the time, especially if you're in a lucid state continuously, right? So it just doesn't work really well for me to do it on paper necessarily. Like I'll journal, but I use collage work way more.
Yep.
And so when we're using the collage work, things will like jump out at us. Yeah. And we'll end up with like all these different things that are clipped, and then we can narrow it down. Well, where do I feel like it goes? And so it's not really a logical process that we're using when we're doing it. I really encourage people like let your hands kind of do it. We'll talk. Mm-hmm. Don't even think about what you're doing, right? Because you're doing work without doing work that way. And if you are too focused on, well, how do I want it to look and what do I want it to say? Right. You're not tapping into the part of you that actually needs to be tapped into. Exactly. And so it works better if like you're distracting your online part so that your subconscious can like, your body can just do the thing, and it becomes a concentrative meditation.
Oh yeah, that's another piece too.
You won't even know. A lot of times when I'm doing this process personally, I don't even know what I made until I'm done.
Agreed.
And then I'll look at it and I'll be like, oh, this is super cool. Like I didn't even know I was doing this. I didn't realize what I was putting out there, but it'll resonate really, really deeply. Yeah. And that is like, we're literally like allowing like this little piece of our subconscious to like
this little regurgitation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I often find too, like Becca was saying, like I get clarity, these realizations. I'm like, oh, that's there. Wow. Or that links to this. Or whoa, I didn't even know I was working on it. Like, you know, Becca talked about having a topic and being intentional with it. Sometimes I'm not even intentional. And I just go in and I'm like, I really feel this pull to do another collage piece. And I just dive in. I just let my first brain, my gut do the moving. And all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, I'm working on this.
Yeah. That can be like the best way to do it is to not have a question.
Yeah.
It just depends on if you have something specific or not.
Yeah.
But I think like if you feel like you're in a good place, best thing you can do is just start collaging and see what happens.
Yeah.
Literally. Because you'll be surprised.
Yeah.
You will surprise yourself. It's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, let's circle back and talk a little bit more about the ego and kind of just like define that further so that, you know, there's more clarity and simplicity around that.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. From my perspective, right, like we hear a lot recently, I think, like in the circles that we're in, I think, for sure. And maybe like everybody who's listening has also been noticing this or experiencing this as well, of a lot of talk about like killing the ego or ego death. And I think that is super misunderstood. I think the ego is super misunderstood. It's not something we should try to get rid of. Okay. Our egoic mind has been protecting us our whole life. It's designed to recognize patterns, recognize what makes us safe, what can get us to safety, what can help us survive, It is our regularly scheduled programming, so to speak, but it has so much information because it remembers every experience that we've had, like our body does.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times when people go on these healing journeys, they want to kill the ego and get rid of it. But that is a huge mistake. We need the ego to let us know where the red flags are.
Exactly.
And we need the ego to be keeping track of things we might not notice so that it can send off warning bells or it can gather more data, right? Because we're always taking in the data. And so what we actually, from my perspective, want to do is like soothe the ego up to the level that we're spiraling up to.
Yeah.
So like, hey, come along with me. I know like this is really uncomfortable and like you totally don't want to do this, but you don't have to hang on to these old things anymore. Like, come join me up here and we have like better things to worry about now actually because we're safer. And we stopped doing these old patterns. And I see the egoic mind stepping in a lot to try to help people, right?
Yeah.
By sabotaging progress because it's really uncomfortable for the egoic mind. And it's like, hey, we don't know how this ends. You shouldn't do that.
Yeah, it's really all about balance, right? It's like I see the ego as my protector. I have OCD, and so my ego has been loud since I was a child. And she has protected me from a multitude of things, and she's prepared me. Okay, I often am not showing up unprepared because she's telling me a lot of things, right? And so I often look at it, and I like your spiral up approach because it really helps me connect the dots. And I also see it as like befriending the ego and being like, thank you for protecting me. Thank you for bringing this to my awareness. Because as I move through my own shadow work organically, I do it like in my dream body and really organically as it comes up. When something comes up organically for me to look at, it's from my ego. She's telling me, you know, and so it really is something that I see when I see the ego death out there. I see some of that misinformation. I see it as an avoidance.
Oh, big time
behavior. And kind of like I just want to bury my past and just keep it pushing. And, you know, that would be all well, fine, and dandy if you didn't continue to self-sabotage yourself because of the avoidance and you're not actually recognizing.
Well, and I think I'm really glad you brought that up because I think what happens when we want to try to avoid or submerge, I see it like the way I describe it is we submerge it. We're like, oh, no, go back down under the water.
That's
go over there somewhere. But what happens when things are submerged in darkness? They grow. And so when we do the avoidant thing with the ego, when we're trying to experience growth, what happens is those mechanisms increase and get bigger and stronger. So then when it pops up, you actually have more problems.
And the patterns increase.
Oh, the patterns get like so you'll be like going along thinking you're doing really well. And then say, for instance, like you got out of a poor relationship and you started like, started using boundaries and you're doing really good.
Communication.
Yep, you've improved your communication, right? And you get into a new relationship and it's a good relationship. It's definitely an improvement. And your ego's like, this is scary. You should totally terminate this relationship. And you're like, I'm just not going to listen to you. What happens is you're avoiding it. The ego goes into submersion. It's hearing all of these alarm bells going off the whole time this relationship is progressing because you're not addressing it. You're not in communication with it. You're not saying it's okay. Let's maybe take baby steps. So you're not addressing any of these things. So then what happens is, say like a year later, some little tiny thing can happen. And all of a sudden here comes the ego. It's like, no, I'm not staying down anymore. We're done with this. This is over. This is bad for us. I don't know how this ends. You're leaving now. And now you've just destroyed all this work that you probably destroyed this relationship, right? And then you're miserable and you feel like you're back to square one. But if we work on the things in baby bites as we're like going through it and like soothing the ego and making sure that we actually feel safe and we're doing like more work around
processing it
actually processing it, then you get more comfortable. It comes along with you. you know, and then you get like a lot of like reassurance from in the relationship too.
Big time.
Yeah. And so then you don't self-sabotage. So a lot of times when I hear self-sabotage, what I hear is I submerged my ego, and now it came back to bite me in the ass because I created the same pattern that I was trying to stop.
Exactly. Exactly. There's like an ancient Chinese proverb that states, what you cling to anxiously will always go away.
Mm-hmm.
And what you push away will always come back, you know, and it just comes right back up in your face.
Mm.
And oftentimes when that happens, what I see a lot, and I've done it, we're all human, but what I see a lot is, you know, people stating life is happening to me, you know, this happened and then this happened, and I'm just, you know, beside myself.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes I hear a thread in this communication of a repeating pattern. Mm-hmm. That is happening because we are avoiding the truth of it, and there's an illusion present, you know, and so it really, like I said earlier, and Becca was talking about just that recognition and that awareness of something, even if it's uncozy, is just so worth it to not avoid. Because if you actually sit there in that pain, in that uncomfortability, in the ugly bits, I call them, right, it's more neutrality that you're reaching.
Yeah.
You know?
And neutral is where we want to be. Everything is neutral in nature. We assign value to it. And we do it all the time. That's why one word can mean something to one person, have an icky connotation, and it can mean something completely different to another person.
Yeah.
And not have an icky connotation, because it's just a word, it's neutral. And we assign the value to it.
Yeah.
And I like to like look at definitions when I'm working with people, like what's the actual definition of this, and what is, so now define it for yourself, right?
Yeah.
But something else that you said like stuck out to me is like, oh, I lost the thought. Okay, never mind.
Oh, that's okay. It'll come back. Let's check out these comments.
Okay.
There's a couple people. I am a bit too aware. Wish I could turn that down a notch. I love that, Shandy. Thank you for bringing that up. So let's talk about that for a second, because there's a lot of us in the collective that are very sensitive and are very open and aware and have been doing this and been on this, you know, journey of shadow work and evolution and these deaths and rebirths and this shedding process for a minute. And after you've gone through that, like Shandy, like that's what that's speaking to, right? Like you've done really hard and amazing work. And when you get to that level, it's like, oh, I'm too awake, I'm too aware, I feel too deeply. And that's a very real process of shadow work and of, you know, moving through this dark night of the soul, so to speak, is, you know, there is this duality and polarity of, I need this truth and I need this awareness and this clarity to move forward and to evolve. And then also, you know, when, you know, there's this thing that happens in our brain where if Becca and I were talking about a red couch, for example, the rest of the week, our brains are going to find more red couches.
Oh, we're going to find them everywhere.
That's just a phenomenon, right? And so like, as you seek this clarity, you find this clarity in yourself, oh girl and gentlemen, you're going to be seeing it in other people. It's going to be really loud, and sometimes that can be like irritating.
Well, and especially when like we can have this high awareness, but we have to function in society. And so I see this a lot, like this heightened awareness around the type of work that like a lot of us are doing and have been on this journey for a long time, where like it's like we can't be in a regular job anymore. Like it's not gonna work. And I think that this heightened awareness, it also, I did remember what I was going to say, and it actually ties into this, is this heightened awareness. Thank you very much. What happens is like, we'll be like, all these things are happening to me.
Yeah.
And what's happening is we're having tower moments because we're supposed to rebuild something new. And we don't like that, because we're like, I did all this work and now everything's a shit show. Are you sure it's a shit show? Or is all the junk that you've been accumulating finally being cleared out on the physical plane? So that you can have something completely different, and it feels like loss.
Oh, God,
and I ask you to ask, I really encourage the question, what am I really losing?
Yeah.
What am I really losing? Am I losing what's, you know, a lot of times what we're losing is things that aren't serving us well.
Correct.
Things that were shoddy craftsmanship from old habits.
Change is scary.
Change is really scary, and it's hard to like I hear all the time, like, oh, well, now I don't fit in at work, and now my friends don't understand me anymore, and I feel really lonely, and I'm too aware of what is going on within myself, and I'm too aware of what I'm seeing around me, and now I just don't want to go anywhere, right? And then all this stuff will start happening. They'll start like having problems with their housing, having problems with their job. And it's like, it's because it's not for you anymore. It's not actually anymore. Trying to clear it out for you. But once we've done all this work, like mentally, emotionally, and in our body, well, it's supposed to move out into the physical, into our greater environment. And so your whole environment needs to change. And it's hard and it's scary. And you're like, well, I can't afford to do that. I hear that so much. I can't afford to do that. And my question is, can you afford not to do that?
Exactly, because through this process, you're becoming more of yourself. That's why it gets lonely. That's why things fall away, because we had these masks on, or these core beliefs on us that were placed on us by people, in our upbringing. And I think that, as you do the shadow work, you're finding more authentic truth alignment, right? And as that happens, anything that's not aligned with your specific, unique, and beautiful truth will fall away. And that's so lonely sometimes.
Well, and here's the thing, it's lonely, but it's lonely because we have to let go of things so we have room for what's for us to come in.
Exactly.
And so we want to clench on to what we know we had all this time, or what we're used to, even though we've changed so much, and it's harming us. Like, we have to let it go. We don't have room for what's actually for us to come in. So that's why all these things that seem bad start happening to us, because we're under spiritual pressure. It's actually spiritual pressure manifesting in the physical. We're under spiritual pressure to learn to let go of it. We have the room for what's actually for us and really beautiful to come into our lives. And are you going to sit there? Is it going to be challenging? Yes. Is it going to be lonely? Yes. Is it going to be better than you could ever dream? Abso-fucking-lutely.
Exactly. Speaking from experience with my own shadow work journey, I personally feel it is the best thing to do every day. Like taking your vitamins, brushing your teeth. Like it just, yes, there were periods of loneliness. Yes, there were periods of like confusion and darkness and pain. But after every corner, through this practice, and you get through that hump where you have that phoenix rebirth, it's so rejuvenating, it's so light, and then you see it in your physical reality. All of a sudden Becca comes into my life, right? Or all of a sudden there's this resource now that I have access to, or this wisdom, or this nugget over here. Like it just conspires for you because you're on this path of conscious action and authentic truth alignment.
Well, and I think you bring up something really important. We have this really distorted sense of time, and we want things to happen really quickly. And so when you're talking about it feels icky, and then it feels good, and then it's refreshing, this can be a long process. I didn't start feeling like I was getting my energy back until a month and a half ago. So it took me a year and a half to go through one hard thing. And it was a really hard work. And experiencing feeling like you're losing everything sucks.
But you did it right. You went about it the right way, and you didn't process it too quickly.
Yeah.
Because that would have been avoidance.
Yeah.
Right? You gave yourself the time, and you moved through all the different layers of the one big thing, right?
Right.
So it's like, we think we're done with it, and we think we're good. And here comes another layer, and we're like,
yeah. And it's still happening.
Of course.
It's still happening, right? Yeah. And so we want to, when we're doing this work and we have high awareness, we're like, okay, so now I have high awareness and I know what I'm doing. So now it should be just really fast and easy. Nope. It's just not. It's just not, because if we're doing deep work, it takes time and it's a process.
For real. let's see what else we got. We got Sarah. The ego is also part of being human.
Yes.
It's important to be aware of it, but killing it sounds like a bad idea. LOL. I love that. You're right, Sarah. We are human. We are these beautiful souls in a human body, and we have free will and we have magic inside of us, and we can shift and evolve, but we're still in a human suit.
Yeah. We're in the meat suit.
And we're going to do human things, and we're going to make mistakes too, and that's all part of, like, the tripping and the getting back up is all part of it.
Oh, absolutely.
And then Sarah says, it can be isolating, but that's why I love what you guys are doing, creating community. Beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and Sarah, you bring up a good point too, like on your end, like you joining a community, right? Like it's really scary when we're in this isolation phase, and we can almost be like, oh, I see that really pretty thing over there, but I don't know if I belong, or I don't know if that's for me, or I don't think I need that help, or whatever, right? And we just try to do it alone. We just try to be stubborn. And I think, like it takes a really big bravery sometimes to just go do something new, like go do the weird thing that you want to do, or go, join something that sounds interesting, like a book club or anything, just to get you out there and touching, part of a community, and just see what happens.
Open and curious.
Open and curious. Yeah, that's a really good point, Sarah.
Yeah.
Very good point. So in relation to the ego, I feel like we talked about, to try to simplify it, just like, let's not damn it. Let's not, push it away. Let's not avoid it. Let's listen to it and talk to it. And I think I kind of want to speak on a little bit well, I'll let you do most of the talking because it's your baby. But like, I really want to talk about with you guys just like organic processing and how it can come up, because it's what's helped me. Like, again, like there's no flack on those books. Those journals are amazing. And that kind of work is really beautiful. It just doesn't work for everybody. And like for me, what I found to be very beneficial is just being in my dream body, when I'm in the car, when I'm doing the dishes, when I'm just sitting there, in front of my altar, whatever, just things will come up organically that I'm ready to move through. And then I just go through my natural process. And I think, I've been doing this for probably about a year, this organic kind of like shadow work shedding. But what really has put it over the top for me and is just like quickened everything is Becca's class. She teaches a process-oriented meditation class, and it's called Lucidity Within. And so I want you to kind of speak about that and kind of like touch on it a little bit to give our audience an idea of how you can organically kind of move through shadow work in a less traumatizing way, and really like somatic way too. Like it really helps release things out of your body that you're storing.
Yeah. So I think the first and most important thing to recognize is that we need to create a space to do the work, right?
Yeah.
If we're scheduling everything else and we're always too busy for stuff, it doesn't have anywhere to live organically, and then it pops up in areas we don't like, and it can actually make it harder to move through our own process, even if we're skilled at doing it, because we're not giving it its own time and space to live in.
Right.
So that's why I love process-oriented meditation, which is really about being and noticing and bringing awareness to being able to be in a lucid state most of the time, where we are organically processing things and allowing for it to occur. And when we think about meditation, many times we think about sitting still and not doing anything and not thinking anything. But that's not
empty your mind.
But that's not what meditation actually is. There are benefits, of course, to sitting meditation and just recognizing the breath, and obviously we want to allow thoughts to just flow and not be sticky. That's wonderful. But if we come up against an edge where like we notice a pain that won't go away in our body, that's an edge. If we notice a thought that repeats over and over and gets loud, that's an edge. These are things we should be addressing.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we have awareness of times of the day we might be daydreaming, times that we might be doing something and we're just on autopilot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And our mind is doing other things. Any dreams that we might be having, this is all part of the dream body. And we can allow that. That is space that's organically designed to do shadow work.
Mm-hmm.
That's organically designed to allow us to process. And so we can work with those moments. Mm-hmm. And we can actually come into that space then with material we want to work on, okay, and be open and curious and say, I would like to know more about this thing.
Yeah.
And then go into a meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll be shocked what happens. And I see people do like guided meditations a lot, and I actually advise against that. Mm-hmm. Because the information that you need is actually inside of you already. And it can be, don't get me wrong, guided meditations are a really good bridge for people that feel like they can't meditate.
Yes.
But I've also noticed that once we realize that like the information is in us already, and if we just give space for it and just allow whatever is occurring to occur, mm-hmm. we realize we're meditating a lot more than we think we are.
Exactly. I think that was, one of the most interesting things about the first class. I'm taking Becca's class right now, the meditation class, and like I said, it's just really helped speed up this process and help me find clarity and connections, right, to the spider web. So you have like these aha moments. But what I really liked about it was just how simple it can be to implement, and how most of us are already most of you are already doing this. Most likely, you just have to bring awareness, mm-hmm. And recognition to it. And like Becca said, be really open and curious. Like, this is hilarious. So this week during our meditation class that Becca teaches, we did a beautiful shamanic practice called the cauldron. And I'll let her speak on that, but I wanted to just highlight, an importance about being open and curious and not being stubborn and like pissed off because your body hurts. Because I'm sitting here, even though I've taken like a lot of sessions of this class, and I know not to be stubborn, not to be resistant. I know to be open and curious. Here's me at the cauldron. And it was a long one. It was like an hour long.
It was an hour-long meditation.
So I'm sitting here for 20 minutes of it, right? Just seething in pain because I'm heavy in my body channel and I'm being super stubborn, super like, ugh, I'm in pain, ugh, trying to adjust myself, and nothing's coming up. And I'm just like, ugh. And then 20 minutes go by and all of a sudden I go, oh yeah, what does Becca say? Open and curious. Jeez, Abby. And so I go in there and I'm like, hello, pain. Which was like everywhere at this point. And I'm like, what do you have to tell me? Can you show me, why you're here, mm-hmm. and what message you have for me? And then it just
boom, boom, boom. Now you're in the other channels.
And then I was just heavy in trance, and I got through a lot of work in that cauldron. And so I just wanted to point out, like, it's just, a lot of times we're super stubborn, and as humans, like Sarah said, we're human. We don't like to be uncomfy. So it's just funny that, as simple as it is, we only just mm-hmm. have to remember to be open and curious.
Yes, 100%. And I love that you talked about like being in that body channel in pain for so long, because essentially what we learn in process-oriented meditation is that we have these different channels that we go into. Yes. And we each have our own like process of channel that we organically will go through. And once we tap in and learn our process, everything speeds up.
Yes.
Everything speeds up because now we're leaning into who we are and how we do things instead of fighting it and trying to be in a rigid box of what we're told it's supposed to look like. Mm-hmm. And it gives us a lot of like room to flow and to like lean into our own process. When we say process-oriented meditation, it's not like I'm telling you what your process is. Mm-mm. You're coming to learn what your process is. Yeah. And pain is like one of the biggest things in the body channel
Yeah.
that I think a lot of people experience,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and especially if we're doing a cauldron practice where we're going into this big dark space with all the icky stuff and nothing can get out until we alchemize it. What's going to be there? A lot of pain's going to be there.
Exactly.
So I'm not surprised that was where you went, but like, you know, your process and you know, that's where you start. And you were like, I just want to get to the good stuff. I'm going to ignore the pain.
I was in total avoidance. I'm like, just show me the pretty visuals. Tell me the pretty things. And of course, you know, I was just chuckling with myself like, oh, Abby, stubborn little mule. And so as soon as I did that, like I said, immediate, like I'm hearing things, I'm seeing things. And then all of a sudden, I'm pretty sure I fell asleep because I was in a trance and I was like in this lucid state, just going back and forth with consciousness, and the work was being done. It was fabulous.
Well, and I think that you bring up a really good point there too, is like, sometimes a lot of times I encounter people that are like, well, I would like to meditate. I want to meditate before I go to sleep, but then I fall asleep. And I'm like, that's fine. You're in your dream body fully then, it's fine. Yeah. And they're like, huh? So when you say like, I'm so lucid, I'm in such a deep trance that I'm going in and out of consciousness, like you're right where you want to be when this happens.
Theta waves.
And you like, this is where you're getting this really rich information actually. And you don't need to know everything that you're perceiving. Like it's there. It's literally right under the surface in the subconscious. And when you're ready for it, it will bubble up and you'll be able to put it into like shapes or words or a collage or have an aha moment, but it comes from those spaces.
Well, and here's the thing too, that I just had a light bulb moment too. That's kind of cool. Another piece of the spider web. When you think about these aha moments, right? There's kind of like this experience of this revelation, and it can bubble into more revelations and more revelations, and then pretty soon you see this thread, and you know, it's extremely fascinating to me to go through this process. And as simple as it is, like it's painful sometimes.
It's complex.
Like it gonna make you cry a little bit. You're gonna purge in a multitude of ways. But every time I come out of it, just so much lighter.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And in processing too, like, you know, you don't have to sit down and do this big cauldron meditation or this big, you know, whatever. I'm in the car yesterday, you know, in my process, driving down the road, and I'm just getting, you know, because I'm being open and curious, just a lot of information that's really helpful. And that one only took 2 minutes.
Yeah, once we're in process or we're open to our own personal flow, like we can get information like that, and we can do it so quickly because we're working with it. Yeah, we're not fighting it.
Right. It's beautiful. Sarah says, I appreciate that because in most situations by myself, I fall asleep meditating, and it's always frustrating to me. So you saying that makes me feel more willing to do meditation alone now. Beautiful.
Good. Yes. There's nothing wrong with going into that space. And I guess my question to you would be actually, Sarah, do you notice you have more lucid dreams when you meditate before you go to sleep and you end up falling asleep in meditation? Because I would bet you do.
That's what I was going to say earlier, that light bulb moment, it left me. So basically, when you say that, Sarah, when you're like, okay, it's making me more willing to do this meditation alone, and it's frustrating when I fall asleep, we're in a theta wave, right? And so that theta wave, when we're in that in-between state of falling asleep, most reprogrammable state for creating new neural network, new neural connections. And so really this process is just, these little neurons are like, yay, and connecting for new thought patterns.
Yeah.
New, you know.
The neurobiology of meditation is very interesting, and we can actually be in a meditative state most of the time, but we're not taught that.
Right. But there are a lot of activities you can do to reach theta waves. One of the things I love to do, we put this cute little turtle here, just to remind ourselves of what you were speaking on earlier with this is a process. We move at this beautiful turtle pace. But sometimes I'm not a big napper, even though I'm trying to get better at it, because Becca always is telling me about the research on naps, and they're so healthy for you.
So good for you. You should nap. Everybody should nap.
Yes, I'm getting better at it. What I do instead of falling asleep all the way is I put a heavy item, usually the turtle, in my hand, and I go on the nap couch, and I allow myself to just drift off a little bit, right? But you're going to feel, if you put this off the couch or off your bed, you're going to still feel it's going to anchor you. And so you're not going to fall all the way into delta or anything like that. You're actually going to stay in theta. And so you can reach, really good realizations. You can reprogram your brain in that state. And it's a really good practice.
That's fabulous. I need that in my life.
Thank you
so much, Abby. Abby always has so much great information.
So do you.
I love our conversations. That's why I was like, let's just record them or something.
Let's just chat online with people.
I think we're kind of close to time. Was there anything else that is coming up? I don't know. I'm just talking.
We are doing, so we get really super jacked too about the Cosmos, guys. And in January on the 25th.
Oh, yeah.
All the planets are gonna be in alignment. And I wanted to do something really cool. So did Becca. And, we wanted to do something with our community. This time, sorry guys, it's women's only. But it's going to be so beautiful and so healing. And you want to talk about that?
Why don't you talk about it? You're already on a roll.
A tiny bit. Okay, I'll do it. So essentially, we just want to have like a really beautiful lock-in. We want to be big teenagers again and just have like an adult sleepover.
And be like 13. Okay.
Yeah, we just want to do that. And so like Sarah, you live in Florida. So if you want to attend the lock-in via the interwebs, I will Zoom you in on my tablet all night, baby.
Fuck yeah.
Okay, so please let me know if you're free. It's a Saturday. But anybody that's in Muskegon, that wants to come down on the 25th, it's a Saturday. We are going to be doing divination and prayer and meditation with one another. We'll probably play with tarot and oracle.
We're going to set annual goals that are in alignment because everything is going to be in alignment.
Yes, I love that too. That feels refreshing. Like it's going to be a nice like conscious action point for us. And whatever else comes up, because it just sounded like fun for us, and we had some people in the community that were interested as well. So that's coming up. If you're interested, if you have Mondays from noon to 1 available, we do this free community screening. Becca bought a series on magical Egypt. And so it's really cool. It's like all of this really beautiful research that has come through, in the last several decades on hieroglyphics, on sacred geometry, on, ancient civilizations and different archaeology things and vibrational healing, all sorts of really fascinating things. And we're going through this series every Monday. So if you guys are free and you want to join our lunch and learn, it's free and very fun.
Come say hi.
Yeah. So thank you guys.
Thank you guys so much. And we will be on next Thursday again.
Oh my gosh, Dom, we love you too.
Oh, hi Dom, we love you.
Hi, sweets. Yes, we'll be on next week. And also to like we said earlier in the beginning, just message us or comment on this video if there's any topics that you're interested in.
Yeah.
To have more education on or knowledge.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. We love you.
Love you.
Bye-bye for now.